In today's episode, don't tell me how to do my job, okay then. Robbery compliance. Okay, I quit then. So let's get started. Don't tell me how to do my job, okay then. Recently, I was reminded of this story from a couple of years ago. As mentioned in a previous story on a different sub, I work for a company that gets hired to do the grunt work at large concerts. Basically, we set the gig up in the morning then tear it back down at night. Two things you need to know first that are relevant to this story. Firstly, this is a job that has the potential to be inherently dangerous. You're working with very heavy equipment, and sometimes at a decent height off the ground, so there is always the possibility that you'll either fall off of something and do some damage, or something will fall on you and do some damage. To give you an example, one load-in we were working, one of the trucks was packed from top to bottom, side to side and front to back with flight cases. This is dangerous since it gives the people unloading the truck no breathing space to unload. While trying to get the first case off the truck, one of my coworkers lost his balance and fell off the ramp. Luckily, I was standing in the perfect place to catch him and cushion his fall. If I hadn't have been there, he'd have fallen just over 5 feet and landed flat on his back on solid concrete, which could have done serious damage to his back. So, as you can imagine, health and safety is quite a big deal to our boss. We're required to wear a hard hat and steel toe-capped boots when we're working, and when we first apply for the job, we're given a sizable document on health and safety to read, and we go through a health and safety briefing before we start our first shift. Secondly, we start every shift by unloading trucks. Depending on the size of the show we're working, we have anywhere from 5 to 30 trucks to unload. Generally, we'll start unloading the trucks, and bit by bit, some of us will be called to start assembling some freshly unloaded staging or rigging. This story involves a gentleman we'll call Kevin. Kevin's an older guy, maybe in his early 60s, and started working for the company at the same time I did, although he worked similar jobs when he was my age, in the late 70s and early 60s. Kevin's a perfectly affable guy, and it's always entertaining hearing about his experiences from working back in the day. However, Kevin is a little bit lax when it comes to health and safety. He's compliant to most of our guidelines, but some things he's a little bit less compliant with. The one thing he does that annoys everyone is sending down flight cases without checking that someone is on the ramp to take the case from him. A little bit of flight case etiquette. When you send a smallish flight case down a ramp, one that one person can wheel along the floor to its destination, you make sure there's one person on the ramp to grab the case, and make sure it doesn't speed down the ramp and go flying into the middle of the arena floor, and at least one person on each side to guide the case down the ramp. These cases might be light enough that one person can wheel one across the floor solo, but they're heavy enough that it's gonna hurt if a runaway one hits your leg. Kevin doesn't do this with the smaller cases, and this annoys everyone else. We've told him several times, but it goes in one ear and out the other. One particular show, we had 10 trucks to unload, and by the time we were on truck number 9, everyone else bar myself, Kevin and a few others had been allocated a job setting up a part of the show. The last truck was late, it had broken down en route to the venue. After we were finished with truck number 9, we were allowed to take a smoke break while we waited for the last truck to arrive. We confronted Kevin outside, and he told us, "Stop telling me how to do my job. I know what I'm doing." So we all nodded and went to smoke our cigarettes. The final truck arrived not long after, and we went to go and got it. We opened the trailer doors, put the ramp in place, and Kevin and another coworker got on the truck and started unload the cases. Our boss, John, walked over to our truck, and one of us said, "Hey John, would you mind helping us unload, we're a man down." John obliged, and walked up to the ramp to get the first case. Just as he stepped foot on the ramp, Kevin launched his first middle. John caught the case, then told Kevin to go with him for a chat. I jumped on the truck and took Kevin's place. We gutted the truck in about 20 minutes, then we were delegated to setting up the drum risers for the stage that we just unloaded. Kevin came back to join us, and we heard later that John had given Kevin a warning, and if he was ever caught breaking health and safety rules again, he'd be fired. Robbery compliance. Back in the 90s, I worked as a floating teller at 2 different banks. I'd travel from branch to branch and cover staffing shortages. Between the 2 banks, I worked at about 40 different branches over a 5-year span. My responsibilities depended on who was out that day. At this particular branch on a Friday many years ago, I was a head teller and controlled the vault. Before we opened, other tellers bought money from me to keep in their drawers. This being a payday, there was a lot of money changing hands. I handed out at least $100,000. Today banks are smarter and restrict tellers to about $2,000, but back then it was the Wild West. I was working the drive-thru, so I'm facing away from the lobby. The front doors open and I'm cashing checks and making deposits, quickly opening and closing the pneumatic tubes leading to each drive-thru lane. About 20 minutes in, one of the customer service bankers appears at my elbow and says we're being robbed. The bandit says has a bomb, and he wants all our money in the bag she's holding. I empty my top drawer, making sure to pull the emergency cash that triggers an alarm. I then stand there and smile at all the customers who are waiting for their transactions that will never be completed. Since the robber silently passed his note to the banker, none of the customers in the lobby know what's happening. A minute passes. The customer service banker comes back. He wants the strapped money. In other words, the money I had pulled out to cover a busy Friday rush. My main drawer is on the front teller line, so I turn around and get a quick glance at the guy with a fake mustache and sunglasses wearing a shabby suit and holding a briefcase in the lobby. I reach down and look at about $60,000 of various denominations in colorful currency straps sitting in front of me and promptly grab a heavy $1,000 brick of ones straight from the Fed wrapped in thick plastic. The consumer banker gives the bag to the bandit and he leaves. We immediately lock the doors and spend the next 3 hours talking to police. Everyone else gave him all their straps. Tens of thousands of dollars. I gave him 1,000 ones. To be clear, what I did was wrong. I made a value judgment based on the info I had in my own stupid 23-year-old pride. I saved Bank of America $59,000, but the bank doesn't care. Still, I get a ridiculous amount of pleasure imaging this guy excitedly cutting through the thick plastic and discovering he now has 1,000 ones so crisp they might as well be 1,000 paper cuts. Okay, I quit then. Reading some other high school and college jobs reminded me of this one. Also, while this was on a phone, I'm sure there will be a few spelling and grammar mistakes. That's on me and not my phone. I type fast and don't double check much. I'll fix a thing here or there if it irks people off enough. In high school, I got a part-time job at a food store we would call No Skills. At the time, minimum wage was $5.15 an hour, and they paid $9 an hour if you worked graveyards. That was killer money, so I worked graveyards Friday and Saturday nights during the school year. I got in at 8 p.m. and left about 7 in the morning. Black Friday was coming up in about a month and my friends like to go out and shop around for fun. I requested to leave early at 10 a month in advance, which was approved by the cool manager I'll call Charlie. That night comes and the whole manager is working, well, call him Dave. Dave decided to give the night off to 2 other employees, leaving us very short-staffed. I of course requested my time off a month ago, so whatever, not my issue. I get into work and let him know I am leaving at 10 just as a reminder. His response was, well, see how far along we are by then, and see, I didn't like how he phrased that, but I thought whatever, I'm leaving either way. So it's about 9:50, I've been working my *** off stocking shelves to get as much done as possible, and go to let him know I'm leaving. He stares at me as says we are too far behind and I can't leave, and to come ask him at 11 instead. I tell him no, I have plans and took it off, so I'm heading out. He starts to grumble to himself, gives this little speech about how everyone else will have to stay super late if I go yada yada. I say I'm still leaving, I took it off a month ago, so it was knows well in advance. He stares at me and tells me if I leave I shouldn't bother coming back and that I will be fired. High school me says that's not fair and whatnot, then he just says I can stay or lose my job. This job is just so I can have spending money, but he seems to think I'm like some other staff who actually need the job and can be bullied around. I just tell him okay, I quit and started to walk away. He tried to say something, but he just mumbled as he had no idea what to say. He never expected me to actually leave. The next day Charlie calls me up and apologizes for what happened and asks if I really wanted to quit. I told him no and about what happened. He assured me Dave would leave me alone and had been talked to. I later found out he was also no longer allowed to approve time off anymore since he left the store so short-handed, and the morning crew actually has to help stock the shelves because it still wasn't done. Bonus story. I did stay working there and over the summer went full-time. A buddy of mine was jealous of the money I made and also got a job there working graveyards with me. Part of the job is facing the aisles before leaving to make it all look pretty. The whole team would tackle the aisles together so we can talk while doing it. With my buddy being new, we played a little joke and told him that part of facing included shaking all the salad dressings as they would settle during the day. We left him to it and moved on, and about 2 aisles later we notice he is still not with us and Charlie, who would help us face when his duties were done, asked where he was. We told him the joke and went back to check on him. To our amazement, he was with the dressings shaking them, and had already shaken most of them already. We figured he was being a smart ass and was doing it so he didn't have to face, but when we told him it was a joke he got pretty pissed off, which made it even funnier. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.